Hey everyone, welcome back to Blakeslee Acres. I'm Joe. I apologize. I've done this video. This is the fourth time I've tried videoing this. For some reason, it keeps deleting every time I go to edit it, and I'm having a heck of a time with this one, but it's something that I really want to get put out, something I've been thinking of. Originally, when I did the first take of this video, it was a couple weeks after Tyler over at Evergreen Farms had put out a similar video. We talked about doing a collaboration with this. We kind of flaked out on him. It's Kyle and I's bad. We just haven't been putting out much on YouTube, either one of us. I know we haven't. I've been crazy busy in the shop. I'm going to be getting an update video this weekend of the shop also. It's come a long way since the last time you guys got to see it. But anyway, this video, we are going to be covering the best animals for a survival situation. I think I'm going to touch base on short-term and long-term. My thoughts on it. Now, I'm going to say this up front. This is what I think would work best for me in my situation on my farm. This isn't going to be everyone's, and I'd love to hear you guys' comments on what you think would work best for you. Depending on where you are in the world, in the United States, wherever you may be, it might be different for you. This is, like I said, this is what I feel is going to work for me. It's what I have expertise in. I know I can do comfortably with the means that I have and take care of. So getting into it, my number one is going to have to be meat rabbits. Short-term and long-term, just because they are quiet, they're super easy to care for, and a small herd, flock, whatever, of meat rabbits is going to require minimal time and resources and energy from you. So in the summertime, I've played around with it where my meat rabbits I've run in my chicken tractors, converted for a rabbit tractor pretty much. I've raised my finished rabbits solely on grass, and I usually put like a mineral block on there, but in a survival situation, you don't have it. You get them in a good stand of grass that isn't just grass. You get something with some plantains and clovers and different, so maybe some vetch in there. The more diversified your forages, the better of a diet is going to be. That goes for all species of animals, because grasses don't necessarily have the longest root structure under the ground. In the untolerated species for like lawns, dandelions, like I said, clover, red or white, either broadleaf plantain, or for some reason I can't think of the other plantain, vetch. We call it not vetch, but there's another thing that we call like poor man's alfalfa. Now those weed type of plants that a lot of people classify as weeds actually have a longer taproot or root structure, and they can mine minerals and micronutrients out of the soil a lot farther down than what a typical lawn grass would. So those animals are going to benefit from having that diversified plant-based. Now with rabbits also, short turnaround period. You're looking at about 3 months from the time you breed them to the time they're ready to be processed. A little bit longer if you want the larger ones. A buck and 2 does can put out a lot of meat for your family. Now I will say, you cannot solely survive on just rabbit meat. You have to have other means of nutrition, carbs, eat potatoes or something like that from your gardens, other meat sources that have some fats in them. So what happens is it's higher in protein and it's super lean. so it's just a direct energy source for your system, from what I've read. There's such a thing as, what is it called? Rabbit poisoning or something like that. Uh, I'll try to look it up and put it in a thing up here. But it's when, like, if in a survival situation out in the wild, rabbits are fairly accessible in a lot of places. So people are surviving solely on rabbits, and they're not foraging enough for berries and kind of diversify their dietary needs. And they actually starve themselves to death because the high protein, they're burning more calories than they're bringing in, and the protein gives them that energy and stuff. They think they're feeling good, but their body's breaking down the muscles and the fats in their body over time to make up for that energy needs that they're not getting from the rabbit meat. And now going into, I live in Western New York. We have 6 months of nasty, crappy weather where you probably can't put them out on grass. Some of the wet, and that's another pro for rabbits, is if it is a wetter spring or fall, they can still do good out in the rabbit tractors. Just make sure you're moving them more frequently. They're not putting a huge impact on those areas. The fertilizer isn't hot, so it's direct fertilizer for those patches. I've seen this moving the rabbit tractors around. The lawn in those places is greened up beautifully and come back way quicker and thicker with each pass of those rabbit tractors. But so wintertime, what do you do in the wintertime if you have no access to feed, or you can't get to the feed store or whatever? Most of us, you can buy square bales, and they'll do fine on dry hay, especially if you can get a good quality hay. They'll breed, they'll raise their kits, not a problem. I've done that before too, just as a test run, to see if it was viable and to make sure my does could do that. I'm always tweaking and playing with things like that. I do feed pellets, don't get me wrong. I do feed pellets to my rabbits as a convenience measure more so. And they do good on the pellet diet. But there's other sources that you can feed the rabbits. Clippings from your gardens, like I said, your lawns. And then for the wintertime, you can buy fairly inexpensive a hand scythe. I know a lot of people can't fathom making hay with a hand scythe, but if, say, you got a smaller piece of property and chickens and rabbit is like your main protein sources, and then a nice sized garden for your other nutritional needs, portions of that lawn, say a long-term situation, you know you're going to have to make your own hay to get those rabbits through the winter, and you have a hand scythe. Once you get the hang of it, it's actually relaxing, and you can put down a lot of hay, good quality hay, in a matter of a couple hours, a week, realistically. I used to feed my goats that way. I enjoy scything the tall grass down by hand. So you can put up a decent amount of hay for a small group of rabbits in little time. Like, this is what I was going, this goes back to the time and energy and resources to keep meat rabbits. So for a year-round meat source, you really can't go wrong with meat rabbits. Easy to process also. I mean, a few minutes you can have a rabbit skinned out and cleaned up and ready to be put on the table or put aside for later use. And their fur is great. Like, real survival situation, you want to learn how to tan. You can tan those hides and make slippers and mittens and stuff like that for you and your family. Small risk, great reward type thing is the way I look at it. I want to get into doing that someday. Why not learn on rabbits? They're inexpensive. You ruin the hide, you get that practice in, it's not a big deal. But if you learn it now, you get that skill now, if something does happen, not saying it will, it's just something that I've been thinking about. So I think that's the gist of it for meat rabbits for me. Short term and long term, and you can have them in suburbs. You can classify them as pets if you want to get away with it. They're fairly, they don't smell, they don't really make a lot of noise. Your neighbors really aren't going to know what you're doing with them unless you tell them or physically show them, or they're looking over your fence while you're processing those rabbits. But super easy to take care of. Number 2 on my list, I would have to say, is maybe a small flock of laying chickens. Depending on the size of your family, 6 to 10 hens, probably be more than enough just to get you guys by. 12 hens maybe. You can feed them scraps. You can feed them scraps of meat. You know, the organs out of these other animals you're processing. I know it sounds brutal, but chickens are omnivores, and I've watched my chickens hunt down field mice and devour them. Worms and bugs and stuff. In the warm months, you get the right genetics, your chickens could be fairly self-sufficient, and there's little things you could do, like some of your waste that you don't think the chickens might utilize right. You could put it in a bucket, a maggot bucket with holes drilled in it, so the flies come, lay their eggs, you get maggots, they drop out on the ground, and the chickens utilize those. You can set up a mealworm farm for your chickens fairly reasonably. You keep it in the house year round. That's a good protein source right there. I'm just trying to think of ways that you eliminate needing to buy feed for these chickens. You say you got enough ground to grow some grains. You grow some for yourself, feed some back to the chickens. You can get a small chicken flock by on minimal feed sources. You may have a dairy animal. That's what we're coming into next. You can feed the extra dairy or whey or waste product from making stuff from the dairy to the chickens. There's a lot of things that you can do with those chickens. You can utilize those hens. I'd recommend, if you can, keep a rooster and try to find a breed that's going to be broody, that can hatch out so you have a consistent flow of chickens every year. In a survival situation, a long-term situation, if those chickens can be doing all the brooding, incubating, the whole 9 yards for you, and you got a steady supply of young roosters that you can eliminate and older hens that you can eliminate, it's not going to be like your store-bought chicken. I know that, but it's still a food source, a protein source, and you're still getting eggs. I think a small flock of chickens, 12 or less, is going to be sufficient for a small family. You may have a neighbor that didn't think ahead and they really need to have some kind of food source. You guys trade and barter things with these animals that you have, the rabbits, the chickens. In a smaller town like we have, even if you're in the village, some of these places some of the houses have pretty good sized lawns. You could be cutting the neighbor's lawn to feed your rabbits in return for rabbit meat or rabbit manure for their gardens, or chicken eggs or chicken. And you need a little bit more animals, you add on, because your neighbor, you guys are working together, share the workload. They might do the gardening, you might be doing the animals. You just never know. You build that relationship if you have decent neighbors. I know not everybody has decent neighbors, but some of us are blessed with good neighbors, and I would do anything to help feed my neighbors with what I have and what I can give them, because they do that the same for me. So yeah, I think a nice, meatier laying hen is worth its weight in gold. Now, going from chickens to ducks. Ducks can be a great resource if you can deal with them. Same thing with the ducks. All the same feed sources, not the food scraps as much though. But mealworms, the maggot buckets, they'll eat all that stuff. And in the summertime, the ducks are pretty self-sufficient. You really don't even have to throw out a stitch of grain for them. If you got a pond, great. I have a pond. My ducks did amazing. Of course, they're going to come down and get the free food, because any animal that can get free food is going to take it. But they forage fantastic. They lay larger eggs, a more nutrient-dense egg, and a larger carcass. They take a little bit longer to finish out maybe than a chicken. Probably not a laying breed, but you're going to get a larger carcass, a little bit more darker meat, a little bit more fat in that duck. A mixed flock of both, even better. I don't enjoy ducks myself. I do not like processing them, but in that type of situation, I would almost have to go with ducks over chickens myself. For all the years that I've raised both, ducks can forage the crap out of a property, get all they need, hatch tons of ducklings, grow a significant amount of meat. They're going to have that fattier, greasier type meat would actually be more beneficial to supplement the rabbit meat. Like I said, I'm not a duck person. I don't enjoy the ducks because they just crap all over. They are messy. But if it comes down to my family's eating today and getting the nutritional requirements that they need, I'm going to have a flock of ducks. They're just so easy to take care of once they're adults, and they can pump out a lot of meat given the right circumstances and space. We're going to start getting into larger animals now. So my next go-to is probably going to have to be sheep or goats or a combination of both. We have all these animals I've talked about, I have a personal experience with. Sheep and goats. We just started some sheep this year. They seem a little bit easier, a little bit hardier than the goats. I don't know how I feel about milking a sheep. I can honestly say that. I haven't wrapped my head around that yet, but people do it. Sheep can be your go-to. That could be what you use. I apologize. It's been a long day. That could be what you use for your main source of meat and milk. I know with my dairy goats, my Nubian dairy goats, I can get a really nice carcass off of those, especially now I'm crossing them with a boar or Kiko. I might do a little bit more meat genetics in there, but my Nubian does with a grain, this is with a grain diet, I can pump out almost 2 gallons of goat a day. Without grain on a forage-based diet, if raising their kids, if I got a half gallon of goat a day, you know, if in a really bad survival situation, you're thinking about it, you might not have electricity and stuff. You got to find other means of keeping that milk cool. Half gallon a day is, you take it in, use what you're going to use, make what you're going to make out of it. The rest is going to go back to those chickens. The ducks don't really utilize it. That's why a mixed flock of poultry would probably be better. But those chickens are going to, you know, do fantastic on that dairy. So I would honestly say I'd probably have a little bit of both. The carcass yield, you're going to get more meat, but not as much as you would with a beef animal, to where you're trying to scramble to figure out what you're going to do with that large amount of meat all at once when you go to process it. Easier to process. You can just use a gambrel in a tree, a rope in a tree with a spreader, gambrel, whatever you want to call it. With hand tools, fairly quickly. Like, I had it down with my saws and everything. I want to say I can do 3 or 4 lambs in an hour and a half to 3 hours with slaughter and everything. I mean, it's so simple, so easy. And if you're in a group of people, that lamb could be utilized within a fair amount of time, to where you're not having to worry about long-term storage. Or can it, whatever. But quicker turnaround. You can get 1 lamb, you can get 4 lambs or goats, sometimes more. I mean, sometimes they have more than that, but like 1 to 3 is that's a pretty good number. And those animals are going to be finished that first year. And any of your doelings that you retain or bucklings, they're ready to breed that first year, within the first year, especially in a survival situation. I don't recommend, definitely go by the weights. If you think it's too small, don't breed it unless you're absolutely desperate. But you can grow your herd quickly. And long term, colder months, I got to put up hay. A small flock or herd of goats, sheep, a combination of the two, they're going to eat a fair amount of hay. They do waste hay. But over a growing season period, if you're on top of things and you're in survival mode, you could probably put up enough dry matter, dry hay for those animals, loose, baled, hand baled, whatever you want to do, and keep those animals through the winter. Now your milk production is going to go way down, but if you stagger your animals, say you got a small herd of 3 goats and a couple sheep, or you just want to stick with one to simplify it, 3 does staggered out through the season, that's going to stagger your meat supply and your milk supply. And goats, like my Nubians, they will come in the gestation period. They don't breed, my Nubians in particular don't breed year round, but it's pretty dang close. They'll start going into heat July all the way through May, maybe August. It'll kick back, just depends on how hot the summer is. They'll take a couple months break where they're not cycling, but you can stagger out 3 goats, like breed them every other month or every 3 months to, all right, this one's lactation is going down, this one's lactation's coming in, and bam, 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 you got a continuous supply of milk. Now, I will say your butters and stuff are going to be lacking with the goat's milk, even with a higher butterfat content like a Nigerian or Nubian. It's just a lot harder to get that. You can do it. It's definitely doable, but it's harder. But it just makes sense. Those are like my main animals. Now, I'm going to say if you have the means to take care of a small herd or a dairy cow or something, and you can put up enough hay for that animal for the winter, a mini Jersey, a Dexter, those are going to be my next go-tos. I love beef. The big thing is now I got to feed that cow and her calf and figure out how I'm going to breed her back. Cows can go 2 years. I mean, goats can go 2 years too, but cows, say you don't have your own bull, doesn't make sense. You only got one milk cow, but you got a neighbor down the road that has a small herd, and you guys are helping each other out. You know, that's a thing. Like a small herd of smaller cattle, if you have tractors or a pair of workhorses or something, I mean, it's more stuff you got to feed, but if you can make enough hay to get that animal through the winter, that's the biggest thing, on your own. You may, even if you don't have enough land of your own, my neighbors don't have animals, but he lets me graze on there. I can take hay off his or my other neighbors and share a little bit of that meat with them, so it's not such a big burden on me when I process. I could process that calf before winter. I have a spring calf processed before winter. Yes, it's smaller. You're not going to get the biggest yields, but you're in survival mode. Protein, that's what you're looking at. And then you're not carrying that through the winter, and you're getting that return. It's going to be obviously a larger carcass than a goat, but that cow is probably only going to have 1 viable offspring a year versus a goat that could have up to 4, say 2 conservative. So you're getting 2 to 1. It just makes sense to go with the goats. They can be such a pain on fences and stuff like that, where cows, if you can keep a solar fence charger going or something, and you got a well-trained animal, you can keep them in with poly wire and you move them around and do the rotational grazing and mow your grass down however you see fit. But yeah, I mean, it's doable if you have the proper space, time, labor. Say there's more than one person helping with mowing it down, if you're using scythes, whatever. I just I want to hear everybody else's thoughts on this. I've heard a lot where rabbit is like number 1, sheep and goats and chickens. I had to throw the ducks in there. I really don't want to give up my bacon, and it's going to hurt me to say this. If it was in a survival situation and I really wanted pork, this one's for you, Canadian Farmstead, I'd have to go with the Cooney Coon. Don't know if I pronounced that right. I've never been around them. I've never bred them. But they forage on grass. They don't tear your pastures up that bad. They're a small pig. They take a little bit more time to finish out. But if you got a small stand of grass and like access to oaks or hickories or anything like that, those little pigs could be a great protein source. They have a lot of piglets. Pigs in general have a lot of piglets. I'm not saying they do. I don't know the average litter size of the Kune Coons, but still, one sow, she could breed 3 times in 2 years. If you really want to get in the nitty gritty, say she averages 6 piglets a litter, and not every piglet's going to grow the same, especially on a forage-based diet where, and pigs can eat scraps. They can eat leftover dairy. They can eat the leftover eggs, the leftover scraps from processing those animals. Like I said, it sounds weird, but you're in a survival situation. You need those animals to stay alive. You need those animals to be slowly gaining. I would have to say that's would be my go-to breed for pigs. Now, what I do with my farm right now, there ain't no way I'm getting those on my farm. Just doesn't make sense for what I'm doing, but in a survival situation, I can see where they are going to be super beneficial. They're a lard type animal too, so you don't have access to cooking oils. Now you got lard to render down. That can be, a snack in its own right there. Cooking utensils, making your flours and pastries or whatever. There's a lot of benefits to each one of these animals, but there's a lot of withdrawals. Now, pigs are omnivores also. And like I said, if you have a large stand of hardwoods that you can put them in the fall, and say you get a milder winter where they're not, you don't get a lot of snow. We've had a couple winters like that. It could have easily been doable where we grazed our animals through on stockpiled pasture if I had the room. The sky's the limit. It's what you make out of the situation and what you're comfortable doing. And I highly suggest people to step out of their comfort zone. I was horrible about that. I didn't want to take risks. I wanted to keep protect myself with what I felt comfortable doing. And this last couple of years has been a huge adventure with building this butcher shop and being a business owner and trying to figure everything out with that. We've had a great support system, great business partners. But that's made me grow as a person all on its own. If you don't have stuff right now, start with rabbits. Find somebody that'll help you process them if you don't feel comfortable doing it. I understand. They're cute. They're cuddly. Same thing with chickens. These things are so simple and the time restraints are so minimal. I really feel better if more people got into this lifestyle and could learn how to help take care of themselves instead of rely on the system that we have, because it's a very fragile system. I've actually thought about doing like a stockpile, like what I tend to keep on hand video too. If you guys would like that, leave me a comment, and when I get time to do it, I'd be happy to do it if I know people are looking for that kind of stuff. Like I said, I'm not an extremist. I keep the basics prepped. Do I want to do more? Definitely. Like, I can definitely get down the rabbit hole of being more prepared, and I want to get there someday. We just have other focuses in our life right now. But I thank you guys for watching this video. It's a little bit longer one. I'm trying to keep my videos shorter, but I think it's an important thing, and I really, really wanted to cover this. So if you guys could like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notifications bell if you guys are, enjoying these videos, want to see more videos, it's going to encourage me to get back on here and put more time into it as I'm getting more of a balance now here in the shop. But yeah, definitely just let me know. I enjoy doing the videos, I enjoy doing the content, but I've had to take a step back and put my efforts and time into my business because that's where I am going to be financially stable. Hopefully someday YouTube, TikTok, that stuff starts bringing in a little bit of income to put towards the farm and stuff. But it's not right now, so I have to prioritize my time where it counts, and right now it counts here in the butcher shop and what little bit of time left I'm putting back into the farm. So thanks, and I hope to catch you guys on the next one.